Underworld 6. Hunt the hybrid.
Hunt them down and kill them off, one by one.
There's always this strange moment when a video game movie drops a trailer, and you can almost feel two completely different audiences holding their breath at the same time. On one side, you've got people who grew up with a controller in their hands, who already have a very specific version of Nathan Drake living in their head. And on the other side, you've got the casual movie crowd who just want something fun, fast, and worth the price of a ticket on a Friday night. And when the first trailer for Uncharted hit, I remember thinking, okay, this is either going to surprise a lot of people, or it's going to fall into that long, messy history of game adaptations that never quite figure out what makes the source material work in the first place. Because here's the thing about Uncharted as a franchise. It's not just about treasure hunting. It's about personality. It's about rhythm. It's about that slightly cocky, slightly reckless energy that Nathan Drake carries like a second skin. And the trailer, right away, had to answer one big question without saying it out loud. Can Tom Holland actually pull that off? And the way the trailer opens, it doesn't even ease you into it. You're dropped straight into chaos. Cargo flying, people slipping, gravity basically taking a day off. It's loud, it's kinetic, and if you've ever played Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception, you instantly recognize what they're doing. They're not just referencing the game, they're recreating one of its most iconic sequences. And that's a bold move, because it sets expectations immediately. You're telling the audience, we know what you love. We're not ignoring it. But then the camera settles just enough for you to really see Holland in the middle of all this. And that's where the conversation shifts a little. He's younger, way younger than the version of Drake most fans are used to. There's less of that weathered, been through everything vibe, and more of a scrappy, still figuring it out energy. At first glance, it almost feels like a mismatch, until you realize the trailer isn't trying to sell you the Nathan Drake you already know. It's trying to show you how he becomes that guy, and that changes everything. Because now you're not watching a fully formed adventurer, you're watching the early chapters, the mistakes, the impulsive decisions, the moments where charm hasn't quite caught up with experience yet. And then, almost like the trailer knows you're still processing that, it brings in Mark Wahlberg as Victor Sully Sullivan. And that's where things get really interesting. Because Wahlberg doesn't play Sully the way fans might expect either. There's no big mustache, no instantly recognizable older mentor energy right out of the gate. Instead, he feels more like a guy who's still halfway between being a con artist and becoming that seasoned treasure hunter we associate with the character. And the dynamic between him and Holland, at least in the trailer, leans more into that uneasy partnership rather than a fully developed mentor-student relationship. There's a sense that neither of them fully trust the other yet, which honestly adds a layer of tension that works in the film's favor. You start to see the shape of the story not through exposition, but through attitude, through the way they look at each other, through the kind of lines they exchange, quick, slightly sarcastic, always with an edge of, I'm not telling you everything. And then the trailer does something smart. It slows down just enough to remind you that this isn't just about action set pieces. There are glimpses of maps, old keys, cryptic clues, the kind of visual language that's been part of treasure hunting stories for decades, going all the way back to Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can feel that DNA here, not in a copycat way, but in the sense that Uncharted understands the genre it's stepping into. It knows it has to balance spectacle with mystery. Still, the trailer never stays quiet for too long. It jumps right back into movement, chases through narrow streets, collapsing structures, water flooding into spaces it definitely shouldn't be in. And every time it ramps things up, you can almost hear the filmmakers saying, "Don't worry, we've got the scale covered." But scale alone doesn't carry something like this. What really caught my attention, watching it more than once, and yeah, I definitely watched it more than once, is how the tone keeps shifting in small, subtle ways. One moment it's all high-stakes danger, the next it leans into humor, sometimes even undercutting its own intensity. And that's a tricky balance. If you push too far into comedy, you lose the tension. If you stay too serious, you lose the fun that made the games work in the first place. The trailer walks that line, not perfectly, but confidently enough that you start to believe it might actually pull it off over a full runtime. There's also the introduction of Sophia Ali as Chloe Fraser, and even in the limited screen time she gets in the trailer, there's this sense that she's not just there to fill space. She feels like a wild card, someone with her own agenda, her own motives, and probably her own version of the truth. And that's important, because Uncharted stories work best when nobody's entirely on the same page. You've got shifting alliances, hidden intentions, people working together while quietly planning their next move against each other. The trailer hints at that without spelling it out, which is honestly the right call. Then there's Antonio Banderas, whose presence alone brings a certain weight. Even in brief glimpses, he carries that classic antagonist energy, the kind where you don't need a full backstory yet. You just know he's not someone you want to underestimate. And as all these pieces start stacking on top of each other, the trailer builds toward that feeling every good adventure movie needs: momentum. Not just physical movement, but narrative momentum. The sense that this story is always pushing forward, always leading to the next clue, the next location, the next problem that needs solving before everything falls apart. By the time the trailer wraps up, you're not necessarily convinced that Uncharted is going to redefine anything. It doesn't present itself as revolutionary. What it does promise, at least in those few minutes, is an experience that understands its own identity. A movie that knows it's supposed to be fun, but doesn't treat that as an excuse to be careless. And honestly, that's where my head landed after sitting with it for a while. It's not trying to be the next big cinematic masterpiece. It's trying to capture a feeling, the thrill of discovery, the chaos of barely surviving impossible situations, the kind of chemistry between characters that makes you want to follow them into whatever mess they get into next. Whether it fully delivers on that, that's a different conversation. But as far as trailers go, this one does something that a lot of them don't manage anymore. It gives you just enough to argue about. And the funny thing is, the more you sit with that trailer, the more little details start surfacing in your head that didn't fully register the first time around. Like your brain is quietly replaying moments, trying to figure out whether what you saw was just flashy editing or something with a bit more intention behind it. Because once the initial adrenaline wears off, you start paying attention to structure. Not just what's happening, but how it's being presented, the rhythm of the cuts, the way tension builds and releases, the choice of when to let a moment breathe versus when to slam you straight into the next piece of chaos. There's a particular confidence in how the trailer handles that cargo plane sequence. It doesn't rush through it like it's just another action beat. It lingers, just enough so you can feel the instability. You're not watching a polished superhero glide through danger. You're watching someone who's very aware that one wrong move means he's gone. And that vulnerability, it matters more than people realize. Because when you look back at the legacy of adventure films, real ones that stuck around in people's minds, it's never just about how big the explosions were. It's about how close the characters felt to losing. That edge where things almost slip out of control. The trailer leans into that idea without announcing it. You see Nathan grabbing onto something that clearly wasn't meant to be held onto. You see objects breaking, slipping, failing at the worst possible moment. And every time that happens, it reinforces this version of him as someone who survives more through instinct and luck than pure mastery. Which, honestly, is probably the smartest decision they could have made with a younger take on the character. And then there's the geography of the scenes. something most trailers don't really care about, but this one surprisingly does. You can track where people are, where they're moving, how one action leads into another. Even in the middle of chaos, there's a sense of spatial awareness. That tells you something about the filmmaking approach right away. It suggests that the director, Ruben Fleischer, isn't just interested in throwing spectacle at the screen. There's an effort to ground the action, to make sure the audience isn't just watching movement, but understanding it. And that's not always easy, especially in something that's clearly aiming for scale. But then your attention shifts again, almost involuntarily, to the tone underneath all of this. Because for every moment that feels grounded, there's another that leans into exaggeration. Not in a bad way, more like a conscious decision to embrace the slightly ridiculous nature of these scenarios. I mean, let's be honest. People falling out of cargo planes and catching themselves on floating crates isn't exactly subtle storytelling, but it doesn't have to be. What matters is whether it feels earned within the world the movie is building. And the trailer seems to say, yeah, this is a heightened reality, but it's consistent. That consistency is what allows the humor to land too. Because when Nathan throws out a line in the middle of all this, half panic, half sarcasm, it doesn't feel like a forced joke inserted to lighten the mood. It feels like a coping mechanism. Like this is just how he deals with situations that are way bigger than he is. And that's where Tom Holland actually starts to click in a way that might not be obvious at first. He doesn't play Nathan as someone who's already figured everything out. He plays him like someone who's constantly reacting, constantly adjusting. There's a nervous energy there, but it's controlled just enough that you can see the potential for growth. You're not watching the finished product, you're watching the blueprint. Meanwhile, Mark Wahlberg brings a completely different kind of presence. Less reactive, more calculated. There's a sense that Sully has already been through versions of these situations before, even if the film hasn't shown you those experiences yet. And that contrast creates an interesting push and pull dynamic. One character is still learning the rules, the other is bending them. One is driven by curiosity, the other by opportunity. And the trailer lets that dynamic play out in quick, almost throwaway exchanges that actually carry more weight the more you think about them. There's also something worth noticing in how the film presents its locations. You get glimpses of different environments, urban spaces, historical interiors, wide open areas that hint at larger set pieces, and none of them feel like generic backdrops. There's texture there. You can almost feel the intention behind choosing these places, like they're meant to reflect different stages of the journey, rather than just serve as visually different stops along the way. And that ties back into the treasure hunting aspect of the story. Because good treasure hunts aren't just about the final prize, they're about the path you take to get there. The clues, the misdirections, the moments where you think you figured it out, only to realize you're missing a piece of the puzzle. The trailer doesn't spell out the entire puzzle, obviously, but it gives you enough fragments to start imagining how it might come together. And maybe that's its biggest strength. It trusts the audience just enough to let them fill in the gaps. It doesn't over-explain the stakes, it doesn't drown you in exposition, it just lays out the tone, the characters, and the kind of ride you're about to get on. And by the time it ends, there's this lingering question that sticks with you. Not in an annoying, unanswered way, but in a genuinely curious one. Not, is this going to be good? But, what version of this story are they actually telling? Because that's the real hook here. It's not about recreating the games beat for beat. It's about reinterpreting them in a way that works for a different medium, with a different cast, aimed at an audience that might not have any attachment to the original material at all. And whether that approach lands or misses, that's something you can't fully judge from a trailer, but you can feel the intention behind it. And sometimes, that's enough to make you pay attention. And somewhere in that curiosity, you start realizing that the trailer is doing something a little more calculated than it initially lets on. It's quietly testing how much you're willing to accept this version of the story on its own terms. Because if you strip away the familiarity, the name, the references, the echoes of the games, you're left with a pretty classic setup. A young guy with a past he hasn't fully processed yet, pulled into a world that's bigger, older, and far more dangerous than he expected. A mentor figure who may or may not have his best interests at heart. A treasure that isn't just valuable, but tied to history in a way that makes everyone chasing it just a little bit obsessive. And that structure, it's been around forever. But what makes it feel different here is the tone the trailer keeps circling back to. Not heroic in a polished, larger-than-life way. Not gritty in a grounded, hyper-realistic sense either. It's somewhere in between. Like the film is more interested in the unpredictability of the journey than in presenting its characters as unstoppable forces. You see it in the way action unfolds. Nothing feels perfectly choreographed, even though obviously it is. There's a slight messiness to it, objects falling at odd angles, characters scrambling instead of striking poses, moments where success looks accidental rather than inevitable. And that gives the whole thing a kind of looseness that actually works in its favor. Because when everything is too clean, too precise, you stop worrying about the outcome. You start watching the mechanics instead of feeling the stakes. This trailer avoids that trap by letting things feel just chaotic enough. And then there's the editing choice that really stood out to me on a second watch. The way it cuts between large-scale action and smaller, almost quiet character beats without announcing the transition. You'll go from something explosive, literally, to a close-up where someone's expression tells you more than any line of dialogue could. A glance that suggests doubt. A half smile that feels more like deflection than confidence. Those little moments are easy to miss if you're just watching for spectacle, but they're doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of tone. They're grounding everything. They're reminding you that underneath all the movement, there are still people trying to figure things out, trying to stay one step ahead of situations that don't really allow for mistakes. And that's where the trailer earns a bit of trust. Because it's not just selling you on what the movie looks like, it's hinting at what it might feel like. There's also an interesting restraint in how it handles the mythology of the treasure itself. You don't get a full history lesson. You don't get a detailed explanation of why it matters beyond the obvious. Instead, you get fragments. A name here, a symbol there, a quick shot of something old and significant enough that you immediately understand its importance without needing it spelled out. That approach keeps the focus where it should be, on the chase, on the characters, on the unfolding tension, rather than bogging things down with backstory too early. And honestly, that's a lesson a lot of films in this genre still struggle with. Trusting the audience to stay engaged without over-explaining everything. By the time the trailer reaches its final stretch, it leans fully into its identity. The music ramps up, the cuts get tighter, the scale expands just a little more. But it never crosses into that territory where it feels like it's trying too hard to impress you. There's a ceiling it doesn't break through, and I think that's intentional. Because going too big, too early, would risk making the rest of the movie feel like it has nowhere left to go. Instead, it leaves you with a sense that what you've seen is just a piece of something larger. Not in a sequel bait kind of way, but in a, this story has layers we haven't shown you yet kind of way. And that's a much smarter hook. It's quieter, but it lingers longer. So when you step back and look at the trailer as a whole, what you're really seeing is a balancing act between honoring a well-loved source and reshaping it for a different audience, between delivering spectacle and maintaining a sense of character, between being familiar enough to feel recognizable and different enough to justify its existence. It doesn't answer every question, and it's not trying to. But it does something arguably more important. It makes you want to see how all these pieces actually come together once the full story has room to breathe. And the more that question sits there, how all of this actually comes together once you're not being guided by trailer editing, the more it naturally pulls you into thinking about timing, not just within the story, but outside of it too. Because Uncharted didn't arrive in a vacuum. It landed at a very specific moment in the industry, one where studios were still trying to figure out what audiences were ready to come back for, what kind of theatrical experience actually felt worth leaving the house again. And that matters more than people think. This wasn't positioned as a quiet, character-driven release. It wasn't aiming for award season conversations or critical prestige. It was built, very deliberately, as a crowd movie. Something that plays better with an audience than it ever could on a laptop screen. You can feel that intention even in the way it was marketed. The emphasis wasn't on complexity or depth, it was on momentum, on scale, on the idea that this is the kind of film you watch with a group, where reactions bounce around the room, where the energy of the experience becomes part of the appeal. And that kind of positioning ties directly into how studios like Sony Pictures have been navigating the post-streaming landscape. Because here's the reality. They're not just competing with other movies anymore. They're competing with convenience. With the option to stay home, scroll endlessly, and only commit your time when something feels absolutely worth it. So when a project like Uncharted comes along, it has to justify itself in a very specific way. It has to feel like an event, even if it's not marketed as one. And that's where casting plays a huge role in the bigger picture. Bringing in Tom Holland wasn't just about finding someone who could physically handle the role or bring the right kind of energy to it. It was about tapping into an existing connection with audiences who already associate him with big screen spectacle. At that point, he wasn't just recognizable, he was reliable. People had seen him navigate massive productions, carry emotional weight in high-pressure scenes, balance humor with vulnerability. There's a built-in trust there, even if the character he's playing is completely different. And pairing him with Mark Wahlberg creates an interesting generational bridge. You've got one actor who represents a newer wave of blockbuster leads, and another who's been part of the studio system long enough to understand how these films function at a structural level. That combination isn't accidental. It's designed to pull in different segments of the audience without making it feel like the film is trying too hard to appeal to everyone at once. Then there's the release window itself, which, if you look at it closely, tells you a lot about what the studio expected from the film. Dropping it in a period that's not overcrowded with major competitors gives it room to breathe. It's not being thrown into a battlefield where it has to fight for attention against multiple heavy hitters. Instead, it's positioned where it can dominate the conversation for at least a short stretch of time. That's a strategic move. Because for a film like this, word of mouth becomes incredibly important. If audiences walk out feeling like they had a genuinely fun experience, that energy carries forward. It builds momentum in a way that marketing alone can't sustain. But if the reaction is mixed, if people aren't quite sure how they feel about it, that uncertainty can spread just as quickly, and the studio knows that. Which is why the entire presentation, from trailers to interviews to promotional clips, leans heavily into clarity. Not explaining the entire plot, but making sure the tone is unmistakable. You're not walking into something ambiguous. You know what kind of ride you're signing up for. And that clarity extends to how the film fits into a broader trend that's been building for years now. The slow, sometimes uneven rise of video game adaptations that actually try to respect their source material without being trapped by it. For a long time, that category had a reputation, not a good one. But things have been shifting, gradually, but noticeably. Studios are starting to understand that you can't just take a recognizable name, strip it down to its most basic elements, and expect it to work as a film. You have to capture the spirit of what made it resonate in the first place. And Uncharted sits right in the middle of that transition. It's not the first to attempt it, and it won't be the last, but it represents a kind of test case. Can you take something that's already cinematic by nature, because the games themselves were heavily influenced by film storytelling, and translate it into an actual movie without losing what made it special? That's a more complicated challenge than it sounds. Because when a game already feels like a movie, the risk is that the adaptation becomes redundant, that it doesn't add anything new, doesn't justify its existence beyond visual replication. So the film has to find its own identity. It has to stand on its own, even while carrying the weight of expectations from fans who know exactly what they're looking for. And that tension between expectation and reinvention is part of what makes the release of Uncharted more interesting than it might appear on the surface. It's not just another action-adventure film entering the market. It's part of a larger conversation about how stories move between mediums, how they evolve, how they adapt to different forms of storytelling while still trying to hold on to something familiar. And whether it fully succeeds or not, The fact that it's attempting that balance at all says a lot about where the industry is right now. And that larger conversation about adaptation, about translation from one medium to another, it naturally brings you to the people carrying that responsibility on screen. Because at the end of the day, no matter how well something is written or directed, if the characters don't feel alive, the whole thing starts to drift. What's interesting about Uncharted is that it doesn't rely on just one performance to hold everything together. It leans on chemistry, on contrast, on the idea that these characters only really work when they're bouncing off each other in ways that feel slightly unpredictable. And that starts, obviously, with Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. But not the Nathan Drake people might have expected going in. Because this version isn't fully formed. He's not walking into scenes with the quiet confidence of someone who's already survived a dozen impossible situations. There's hesitation there. Curiosity mixed with caution. He's observant, but not always prepared. And Holland leans into that in a way that's more physical than verbal. You see it in how he moves through space. He's quick, reactive, always adjusting. There's a kind of restlessness in his performance, like he's constantly calculating his next step, even when he's trying to look relaxed. It gives the character a different kind of tension. You're not watching someone who knows they'll make it out. You're watching someone who's hoping they will. And that subtle shift changes how you experience the action too. Every close call feels a little less like spectacle and a little more like survival. Then you put him next to Mark Wahlberg, and the energy shifts almost immediately. Wahlberg's Sully isn't loud or overly charismatic in an obvious way. He plays things closer to the chest. There's a sense that he's always holding something back. Information, emotion, maybe even intention. And that restraint creates a kind of friction with Holland's more open, reactive approach. Their conversations don't feel like clean exchanges of dialogue. They feel like negotiations. Like each line has a second meaning underneath it. Something unspoken that both characters are aware of but not addressing directly. That dynamic takes time to settle, but once it does, it becomes one of the more interesting aspects of the film. Because it's not built on immediate trust, it's built on necessity. And that's a very different foundation for a partnership. Then there's Sophia Ali as Chloe Fraser, who brings a completely different rhythm into the mix. Where Nathan is still finding his footing and Sully is carefully controlling his, Chloe moves like someone who's already decided she doesn't owe anyone an explanation. There's confidence there, but it's not performative. It feels earned, like the character has already lived through enough to know exactly where she stands. And what makes her presence work is that she doesn't exist just to support the main duo. She complicates things. Her motivations aren't immediately clear, and the film doesn't rush to clarify them. Instead, it lets that ambiguity sit, which adds a layer of unpredictability to every interaction she's part of. You're never entirely sure which direction she's leaning, and that uncertainty keeps the dynamic from becoming too comfortable. Then you bring in Antonio Banderas, and suddenly the tone tightens. Because Banderas has a way of commanding attention without needing to raise his voice or dominate the frame physically. There's a controlled intensity in his performance, something deliberate, measured. His character doesn't feel chaotic or impulsive, he feels patient. And that patience makes him more dangerous than a typical high-energy antagonist. You get the sense that he's always thinking a few steps ahead, that whatever plan he's following has been in motion long before the other characters even realized they were part of it. That kind of presence shifts the stakes. It's no longer just about getting to the treasure first. It's about understanding who you're up against and whether you're already too late. What's also worth noticing is how the supporting cast fills in the edges without overwhelming the core dynamic. There are smaller roles that come and go, characters who exist more as pieces of the puzzle than fully explored individuals. But they serve a purpose. They expand the world just enough to make it feel lived in, without pulling focus away from the main relationships driving the story. And that balance is harder to achieve than it looks, because in a film like this, it's easy to overcrowd the narrative with personalities, to try and give everyone a moment that ends up diluting the overall impact. Uncharted mostly avoids that by keeping its focus tight. It knows who the story belongs to, even as it allows other characters to influence its direction. And when you step back and look at the cast as a whole, What stands out isn't just individual performances, it's how they fit together. How the differences between them create tension, humor, and momentum. How the story doesn't just move forward because of what happens, but because of who it's happening to. That's where the film finds its center. Not in the action, not in the spectacle, but in the space between these characters, where trust is uncertain, motives are shifting, and every decision feels like it could tilt the entire story in a different direction. And it's that sense of shifting ground between the characters that actually makes it easier to talk about what the movie feels like without giving anything away. Because honestly, this is one of those stories where the experience matters more than the individual plot points. If you go into Uncharted expecting some kind of deeply layered, slow burn narrative, you're probably going to feel like it's moving too fast. But if you meet it where it wants to be, somewhere between a modern action film and a throwback adventure, it starts to click in a different way. The story doesn't waste time building up its premise. It introduces you to Nathan Drake in a place that feels grounded enough to understand who he is before everything starts escalating. There's a sense of normalcy there, even if it's temporary. You get just enough to recognize that he's someone who's always been a little out of step with the world around him. Someone who notices things others might miss, but hasn't quite figured out where that skill fits yet. And then, almost without warning, that normalcy gets interrupted. Not in a dramatic, world-ending kind of way, but in a way that feels personal. Like the story is pulling him into something that was always waiting for him, whether he realized it or not. That's where Sully enters the picture, and from that point on, the film starts leaning into its central idea, this push and pull between opportunity and trust. Because the journey they set off on isn't just about finding something valuable. It's about figuring out what's worth believing in. And the film keeps that idea in motion without stopping to underline it. Clues lead to locations, locations lead to complications, and every step forward seems to come with a new question attached to it. Not always big, dramatic questions. Sometimes it's just a glance, a hesitation, a decision that feels slightly off but not enough to fully call out. That's how the story builds tension. Not by constantly raising the stakes in obvious ways, but by creating this undercurrent of uncertainty that never fully settles. You're always aware that things could shift, that alliances might not hold, that whatever plan is in place might only work up to a certain point before it starts to unravel. And visually, the film supports that feeling with a sense of movement that rarely slows down for long. The locations don't just serve as backdrops, they feel like obstacles. Like each environment has its own set of rules that the characters have to adapt to on the fly. A narrow street becomes a maze. An open space becomes a vulnerability. An enclosed area becomes a trap waiting to close. And the way the camera moves through these spaces reinforces that idea. It's not static. It's not observing from a distance. It's in it, shifting with the characters, reacting to the same unpredictability they are. That creates a kind of immersion that doesn't rely on spectacle alone. It's about perspective. You're not just watching the journey, you're experiencing its instability. At the same time, the film never loses sight of its tone. It doesn't get too heavy, even when the stakes start to feel more serious. There's always a thread of humor running through it, but it's not forced. It comes from the characters themselves, from how they respond to situations rather than from situations being written as jokes. Nathan's reactions, in particular, carry a lot of that weight. He doesn't always have the perfect line ready, and when he does, it often feels like it's coming out of a place of trying to keep things from getting too overwhelming. That kind of humor feels human. It doesn't break the tension. It bends it just enough to keep things from snapping. And as the story continues unfolding, you start to realize that it's less about reaching a destination and more about how these characters change along the way. Not in huge, dramatic transformations, but in smaller, more believable shifts. Trust builds in fragments. Doubt lingers longer than you expect. Decisions that seem simple at the beginning start to carry more weight as the consequences become clearer. And all of that happens without the film needing to pause and explain it. It trusts you to pick up on those changes, to notice how relationships evolve even when the story is moving quickly. That's where it finds its rhythm. Not in slowing down, but in layering meaning into the motion. So when you step back and look at the overall experience, what you get isn't a story that's trying to surprise you at every turn. It's one that invites you to enjoy the ride while quietly building something underneath. Something that's less about the treasure itself and more about the people chasing it, and what they're willing to risk, reveal, or hold back before they finally get there. And when you sit with all of that for a minute, the movement, the shifting trust, the way the film builds its rhythm without ever really slowing down, you start to see where the real conversation around this movie lives. Because Uncharted isn't the kind of film that's trying to impress you with complexity. It's trying to win you over with execution, and that's a very different standard. Because when a film leans into simplicity, when it chooses a clear, familiar structure, instead of layering itself with heavy themes, it leaves itself exposed in a way that more complicated films don't. There's nowhere to hide. Every choice becomes more visible. Every scene has to justify itself through how it plays, not just what it represents. And that's where the movie becomes more interesting to evaluate, because there are moments where it really does click. Moments where the pacing, the performances, and the visual storytelling all line up just right, and you can feel the film operating exactly as intended. The action flows, the humor lands naturally, and the tension holds just long enough to keep you invested without exhausting you. Those are the sequences where you stop analyzing and just watch. But then there are other moments where you can feel the seams a little. Not in a way that completely breaks the experience, but in a way that reminds you this is still a constructed piece of entertainment trying to balance a lot of moving parts. Sometimes the transitions between scenes feel just a touch too quick, like the film is eager to get to the next set piece before fully letting the previous ones settle. And that affects how certain emotional beats land. Not because they're poorly written or acted, but because they don't always get the breathing room they need to fully resonate. It's a pacing choice. And pacing, especially in a film like this, is a constant trade-off. Spend too much time on character, and you risk losing the momentum that defines the genre. Move too quickly, and you risk making those character moments feel like brief interruptions instead of meaningful developments. Uncharted walks that line, sometimes perfectly, sometimes just slightly off balance. And then there's the question of identity, because this is where a lot of video game adaptations struggle. They either cling too tightly to the source material or drift so far away that the connection starts to feel superficial. What this film does is take a middle path. It borrows the tone, the energy, the core dynamics, but it reshapes the details to fit a cinematic structure. That means some things feel familiar in a comforting way, while others feel just different enough to catch you off guard. And whether that works for you really depends on what you were hoping to get out of it. If you came in looking for a direct translation of the games, there are going to be moments that feel like they're missing something. But if you approach it as its own version of the story, something inspired by the source rather than bound to it, it becomes easier to appreciate what it's actually doing. Because at its best, the film understands something important. It understands that adventure isn't just about what happens. It's about how it feels while it's happening. That sense of barely holding things together. That unpredictability where plans shift, alliances change, and outcomes are never completely certain until they're right in front of you. And the movie captures that feeling more often than it misses. Visually, it commits to that idea with a style that prioritizes movement and clarity over stylistic excess. It's not trying to reinvent how action is filmed, but it does make an effort to keep things readable, to make sure you can follow what's happening without getting lost in overly chaotic editing. That choice might not stand out immediately, but it matters. Because in a film built around momentum, confusion is the fastest way to lose engagement. And then there's the humor, which, honestly, is one of the more consistent elements throughout. It doesn't rely on big, exaggerated punchlines. It comes from character reactions, from timing, from the slight awkwardness of people navigating situations they're not entirely comfortable in. Tom Holland, in particular, carries a lot of that weight. He brings a kind of grounded relatability to Nathan Drake that makes the character accessible, even when the situations around him are anything but. You believe his uncertainty, You believe his hesitation. And that makes his moments of confidence feel earned rather than assumed. At the same time, Mark Wahlberg provides a steadier counterbalance. Less reactive, more controlled, often operating with a sense that he's already thinking a few steps ahead. That contrast doesn't always lead to explosive chemistry, but it creates a dynamic that feels functional, believable in its own way. Not every partnership needs to be instantly electric. Sometimes it just needs to feel like it works. And by the time the film reaches its later stages, what you're left with isn't a sense that you've seen something groundbreaking. It's a sense that you've been on a ride that understands its purpose. It knows what it wants to be, and for the most part, it delivers on that without overcomplicating things or pretending to be something it's not. And in a landscape where so many films either aim too high or play it too safe, there's something quietly respectable about that balance. And once you get past that initial reaction, the "okay, that worked," mostly, your brain starts doing that thing it always does after a movie like this. It begins picking at the edges, looking for the details that didn't jump out right away, but actually say a lot about how the whole thing was put together. Because Uncharted is one of those films where the obvious stuff, the action, the casting, the set pieces, gets most of the attention. But there's a layer underneath that's a little more revealing if you slow down and look at it. For example, the way the film handles its sense of history. Treasure hunting stories always rely on the past feeling tangible, like it's still echoing into the present. And here, instead of dumping exposition on you, the film uses visual shorthand. Old artifacts aren't just shown. They're framed in a way that suggests weight, importance, consequence. You don't need a full explanation of where something came from to understand that it matters. That's a subtle storytelling choice, but it makes a difference. It keeps the pace moving while still giving the world a sense of depth. And then there's the recurring idea of misdirection. Not just in the plot, although that's definitely there, but in how information is presented to the audience. Characters don't always say exactly what they mean. Plans aren't always revealed in full. Even the way certain scenes are edited can lead you to assume one thing before quietly shifting in another direction. It creates this low-level tension that runs underneath everything. You're never completely settled. You're always slightly aware that there's more going on than what's being shown at any given moment. And that ties directly into the film's theme of trust, or maybe more accurately, the lack of it. Because almost every character in the story operates with at least one hidden motive. Not necessarily in a dramatic, villainous way, but in a very human way. People hold things back. They protect their own interests. They make decisions based on information that others don't have. And the film doesn't judge that. It just presents it as part of the reality these characters live in. That kind of moral gray area adds texture, even if the movie itself doesn't dive deeply into philosophical territory. It's there if you're paying attention, quietly shaping how you interpret certain choices and outcomes. Another detail that stands out more on reflection is how the film uses physical space to tell its story. It's not just about moving from one location to another, it's about how each space influences behavior. Tight environments force quick decisions. Open environments create exposure. Vertical spaces, climbing, falling, hanging on by a thread, introduce a constant sense of instability. And that physical instability mirrors what's happening between the characters. Nothing is completely secure. Not the ground they're standing on, not the alliances they're forming, not even the plans they think they're following. It's all in motion. Even the quieter moments carry that energy, like they could shift at any second. Then there's the question of legacy. Not in the grand, epic sense, but in a more personal, almost understated way. Nathan Drake's journey isn't just about what he finds, it's about what he inherits, what he chooses to carry forward, and what he decides to leave behind. That idea is woven into the story without being overemphasized. It shows up in small ways, in decisions that feel impulsive on the surface, but are actually tied to something deeper. In moments where the character hesitates, not because he's unsure of the situation, but because he's unsure of what kind of person he wants to be in that situation. And that's where the film, almost quietly, gives itself a bit more weight than you might expect. Not enough to turn it into something heavy or introspective, but enough to give the journey a sense of purpose beyond just reaching the end. There are also little nods, small details that feel like they're there for people who are familiar with the source material, but they're integrated in a way that doesn't alienate anyone who isn't. They don't stop the story to point at themselves. They just exist. And that's the best way to handle that kind of fan service. Make it part of the world, not a distraction from it. Even the way certain action sequences are designed reflects that philosophy. They're not just trying to recreate moments from the games, they're trying to capture the feeling of those moments. The unpredictability, the sense that things are constantly on the verge of going wrong. And sometimes they push that just far enough that you can see the ambition behind it, even if the execution isn't flawless every single time. But that ambition matters, because it shows that the film isn't just playing it safe. It's willing to take risks, even small ones, to find its own version of what Uncharted can be as a movie. And when you add all of that up, the visual storytelling, the thematic undercurrents, the attention to detail, you start to see a film that's more thoughtful than it might initially appear. Not in an obvious, attention-demanding way, but in a quieter, more deliberate way that reveals itself the longer you sit with it. The brilliance of Jurassic World is further amplified when you consider its careful orchestration of suspense alongside character-driven stakes. Take, for instance, the way the Indominus Rex sequences are structured. Each appearance of the creature is carefully timed to maximize tension, not simply through brute force or sheer size, but through unpredictability. The audience is never quite sure when or how the creature will strike, which keeps the adrenaline high and engagement sustained. Yet, these moments are never arbitrary. The raptor enclosures, the park's layout, and the characters' responses all inform the suspense, creating a rhythm where every near miss feels earned, and every escape feels hard-won. It's a dance between predator, environment, and human ingenuity that underscores how tightly the film's action is choreographed. This choreography extends beyond pure physicality. There's a remarkable interplay between human decision-making and environmental hazards. The filmmakers invest time in establishing rules. Fences fail, systems falter, and characters have limited options. But these limitations are consistent. That consistency is what allows tension to feel credible. When a dinosaur is about to attack, the audience understands the spatial constraints, the risks of each choice, and the consequences of hesitation. The park itself becomes a character in the narrative, its design, flaws, and unpredictability shaping the story as much as the creatures or humans within it. Character dynamics are crucial to sustaining emotional weight amidst the spectacle. Owen and Claire's evolving relationship, initially grounded in professional necessity and differing perspectives, becomes a lens through which viewers interpret the chaos around them. Owen's rapport with the raptors isn't just a clever gimmick. It's emblematic of the film's theme of respect versus control. These animals are intelligent, responsive, and unpredictable, and his interactions with them demonstrate both skill and empathy. Conversely, Claire's journey, from corporate administrator to proactive protector, mirrors a moral awakening. Her growth is not sudden but accumulative, emerging naturally from the stakes and her experiences. This gradual development ensures that when climactic confrontations occur, the audience is invested emotionally, not just visually. The narrative also cleverly balances spectacle with ethical undertones. The Indominus Rex represents more than a physical threat. It embodies the consequences of human overreach, corporate hubris, and the ethical blind spots in scientific pursuit. This thematic layer enriches the adrenaline-driven sequences, allowing the audience to appreciate that the danger is not just kinetic, but philosophical. By embedding these ideas into plot and action, the film avoids preachiness while prompting reflection, an approach that elevates it above a simple monster chase. From a technical standpoint, the seamless integration of animatronics and CGI sets a benchmark. Practical effects provide tangible interactions for the actors, grounding the scenes in realism, while digital enhancements allow for dynamic movements, scale, and environmental integration that would otherwise be impossible. This hybrid approach ensures that even the most fantastical sequences feel credible. When characters reach out, recoil, or duck, their interactions with the dinosaurs feel authentic, further immersing the audience in the park's perilous ecosystem. Suspense is amplified by cinematography that leverages perspective and spatial awareness. Tight, close-up shots during chase sequences create intimacy and urgency, while sweeping vistas establish scale and grandeur. This duality allows the audience to experience both immediate danger and the broader consequences of the chaos unfolding. By shifting between micro and macro perspectives, the film keeps viewers engaged on multiple sensory and cognitive levels simultaneously. The sound design, paired with Michael Giacchino's score, operates almost narratively. Crescendos signal impending danger, subtle ambient noises suggest off-screen threats, and moments of quiet amplify tension. This auditory layering doesn't just complement the visuals, it shapes perception, guiding the audience's emotional response without overt manipulation. Combined with visual framing and editing, the soundscape orchestrates suspense in a way that feels instinctual yet meticulously crafted. Even minor characters are given meaningful roles that contribute to tension and narrative depth. Their reactions, improvisations, and decisions under duress enhance realism, ensuring that the park feels inhabited by real humans responding credibly to extraordinary circumstances. Children, technicians, and secondary staff all have stakes and agency, reminding viewers that the chaos impacts a spectrum of lives, not just the primary protagonists. This careful attention to population dynamics within the story enhances immersion and heightens emotional stakes. The culmination of narrative, technical, and thematic threads is particularly evident in the climax. Multiple storylines, corporate accountability, dinosaur behavior, environmental hazards, and character arcs converge, creating sequences that are both intense and narratively satisfying. There's a careful balance between payoff and surprise, ensuring that the resolution feels earned, logical, and emotionally resonant. The audience experiences relief, excitement, and contemplation simultaneously, a testament to deliberate storytelling and precise pacing. Finally, the aftermath sequences subtly hint at a world that exists beyond the immediate plot. Lingering shots of damaged infrastructure, the characters' reflective responses, and the unresolved environmental consequences suggest continuity and depth. Jurassic World doesn't end with spectacle alone. It leaves the audience considering the broader implications of human ambition, ecological disturbance, and ethical responsibility. This lingering resonance ensures that the film's impact extends beyond the theater, cementing it as a thoughtful, high-stakes blockbuster rather than a transient thrill ride. In sum, Jurassic World represents a convergence of intelligent narrative design, technical mastery, and emotional engagement. It balances spectacle with substance, thrills with reflection, and chaos with coherence. By orchestrating suspense, character development, thematic depth, and technical prowess into a cohesive whole, the film delivers an experience that is both exhilarating and intellectually stimulating, a benchmark for modern blockbuster storytelling. One of the more fascinating elements that often goes underappreciated is how the film handles time and pacing, especially in the context of a modern blockbuster. Jurassic World doesn't simply string together one action set piece after another. It builds tension through carefully calibrated narrative beats. The filmmakers alternate sequences of chaos with quieter moments that allow the audience to breathe, reflect, and anticipate the next escalation. These pauses are not filler, they're essential for emotional investment. Watching Owen observe the raptors, or Claire assess the park's vulnerabilities, isn't just exposition. It's preparation for the audience to understand stakes, relationships, and potential outcomes. In effect, these quieter beats increase the intensity of subsequent action because we've had time to internalize what's at risk. The design of suspense is also particularly sophisticated. Fear is structured psychologically as much as it is visually. The soundscape, camera angles, and even the choreography of movement contribute to a feeling of dread before the threat is fully visible. A scene might linger on a seemingly innocuous detail, a ripple in a puddle, a shadow cast across a hallway, triggering anticipation. When the Indominus Rex finally appears, the payoff is amplified precisely because the audience has been primed. It's a lesson in restraint and timing. The filmmakers trust viewers to pick up on subtle cues and use them to engage emotionally, rather than relying on constant, overt shock. The ethical tension embedded in the narrative also elevates the story beyond pure spectacle. Characters confront questions about responsibility and morality throughout. Is it right to engineer creatures purely for entertainment and profit? What are the consequences of manipulating life on such a scale? These questions aren't addressed through clunky dialogue. They're embedded in actions and choices. The Indominus Rex becomes the narrative manifestation of hubris, an apex predator whose existence and behavior force characters, and the audience, to reckon with ethical boundaries. This is storytelling that respects intelligence, allowing reflection without resorting to preachiness. Another impressive dimension is the way characters' agency is framed under extreme pressure. Claire, initially depicted as a corporate manager more comfortable in boardrooms than jungles, evolves through the narrative. Her problem-solving, quick thinking, and courage in protecting others are believable because they build logically from her experiences throughout the story. Similarly, Owen's connection with the raptors isn't magical. It's grounded in observation, training, and understanding of behavior. These arcs are layered so that when characters confront danger, the audience not only anticipates their actions, but emotionally roots for them, understanding the weight of their decisions. The interplay between humans and dinosaurs is also constructed with precision. Raptors, in particular, are treated as intelligent, strategic creatures, rather than mindless antagonists. Their behavior follows logical patterns, which allows sequences to feel tense and unpredictable at the same time. The audience can recognize patterns and anticipate potential outcomes, yet the unpredictable environmental factors, terrain, obstacles, other creatures, ensure that suspense is maintained. This balance of predictability and surprise is a hallmark of skillful suspense design, and it's woven throughout the film in a way that feels natural and thrilling. The production design supports this tension elegantly. Every set, corridor, and enclosure is not just visually striking, but also narratively functional. Collapsing structures, malfunctioning electric fences, and precarious terrain all force characters to engage with the environment thoughtfully. The park is not just a backdrop, it's an active participant in the storytelling. Filmmakers use space, perspective, and environmental hazards to structure suspense, creating sequences where timing, positioning, and decision-making become critical. When characters navigate complex environments under duress, the audience feels that danger is both omnipresent and credible. Sound and score continue to underscore the emotional and narrative rhythms. Giacchino's music isn't just background. It actively shapes the audience's perception of suspense, awe, and relief. Crescendos and quiet interludes punctuate tension, while environmental sounds, footsteps, distant roars, machinery, layer realism into every scene. These auditory cues, combined with cinematography and editing, ensure that the audience is not only observing events, but viscerally experiencing them. The film's soundscape and musical choices demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of how audio can manipulate emotional engagement. Another noteworthy aspect is the layering of stakes. There's immediate danger from predatory dinosaurs, environmental hazards, and failing systems. But there's also the broader thematic tension of human ambition versus nature. The Indominus Rex embodies both threats. It is a tangible predator and a symbolic consequence of ethical transgression. This duality ensures that action sequences carry both visceral and intellectual weight, enhancing the narrative's depth. Each encounter with a dinosaur is thrilling on a sensory level, while reinforcing the story's broader commentary. Minor characters are treated with care as well. Their reactions, choices, and consequences are not throwaway. They enrich the story's realism. From technicians managing the park's systems to children navigating perilous situations, each character contributes to the tension, ethical complexity, and emotional stakes. The audience perceives a fully populated, responsive world, rather than a series of isolated set pieces. This attention to human detail, even amidst large-scale action, anchors the narrative and ensures sustained engagement. Ultimately, the film succeeds because it integrates spectacle, suspense, and thematic resonance into a coherent, emotionally engaging whole. Jurassic World isn't merely a showcase of dinosaurs and CGI. It's a narrative carefully engineered to deliver awe, tension, and reflection. Every visual, auditory, and narrative choice is calibrated to sustain attention and emotional investment across the film's runtime. It's an example of blockbuster filmmaking where artistry, intelligence, and entertainment coexist seamlessly. The genius lies in how all these components, character development, suspense, ethical undertones, environmental design, sound, and visual effects converge. You leave the theater exhilarated, reflecting not just on the thrilling action, but on the ethical, emotional, and psychological stakes that underpin it. The film rewards careful attention, offering layers of engagement that extend beyond surface-level entertainment. It's a testament to meticulous craftsmanship and a modern understanding of how audiences connect with cinematic worlds. Jurassic World doesn't simply entertain. It immerses, challenges, and resonates, proving that high-stakes spectacle and thoughtful storytelling are not mutually exclusive. It respects its characters, its audience, and the rules of its universe, creating a blockbuster that is as intellectually satisfying as it is thrilling. The lingering impact of the film comes not just from adrenaline or visual spectacle, but from how it respects the audience's intelligence. There's a sense throughout Jurassic World that nothing is arbitrary. Every dinosaur behavior, every park design choice, every ethical dilemma has been considered within the internal logic of the story. That level of narrative integrity is rare in blockbuster cinema, where sometimes spectacle is prioritized over coherence. Here, the filmmakers understand that if the audience trusts the rules of the world, the suspense and emotional stakes feel authentic. You're not just watching chaos unfold, you're analyzing, anticipating, and reacting alongside the characters, which makes every near miss and heroic action more satisfying. Character agency is crucial in this dynamic. Claire isn't a passive observer swept along by events. Her decisions, risky, sometimes morally ambiguous, always human, drive significant portions of the plot. Owen's relationship with the raptors exemplifies a similar principle. These aren't merely CGI predators executing pre-programmed movements. They are responsive, intelligent, and their interactions with humans carry weight because they're grounded in behavioral logic. The audience internalizes the rules governing both human and dinosaur behavior, which amplifies tension and emotional engagement. The filmmakers also deserve recognition for how they handle environment as a storytelling tool. The park itself isn't just a backdrop. It's an active participant in the narrative. Collapsing enclosures, failing power systems, and natural hazards are all interwoven with character action, making geography and timing integral to the suspense. The camera often frames sequences to emphasize spatial relationships, heightening the stakes when characters must navigate through confined corridors while a predator closes in, or when open spaces offer temporary safety but increased exposure. The spatial intelligence embedded in these sequences ensures that danger feels immediate, real, and comprehensible. In addition to technical sophistication, the script is attentive to emotional nuance. Moments of awe, fear, and even humor are strategically placed to keep the audience emotionally balanced and engaged. For example, the subtle humor in a character's reaction to a dinosaur's unpredictable behavior provides relief without undercutting tension. Likewise, reflective pauses, Owen observing raptor behavior, Claire contemplating the consequences of her actions, allow viewers to absorb the stakes and consider the ethical dimensions of the narrative. These deliberate tonal shifts enrich the viewing experience, giving the blockbuster a depth that goes beyond pure spectacle. The film's thematic resonance is another layer that elevates it. Beyond the obvious thrills of dinosaurs running amok, Jurassic World explores human ambition, corporate greed, and the unpredictable consequences of playing with nature. The Indominus Rex serves as a metaphor for the hubris of attempting to control life itself, a cautionary figure whose intelligence and aggression underscore the risks of unchecked technological manipulation. These thematic threads aren't preached. They're embedded in the story, revealed through action, consequence, and character decision-making, which allows the audience to engage with them organically. Suspense is further enhanced through pacing and timing. Action sequences are interspersed with quieter, tension-building moments, creating a rhythm that mirrors real-world adrenaline, peaks and troughs that keep the audience both alert and invested. The strategic use of first-person perspectives and wide shots heightens both intimacy and scale, allowing viewers to feel personal involvement while appreciating the grandeur of the park. This oscillation between micro and macro perspectives sustains engagement and makes every escalation feel earned. The combination of practical and digital effects remains a benchmark for contemporary cinema. Animatronics provide a tactile, believable presence, while CGI allows for dynamic movement, scale, and interaction that would be impossible with practical effects alone. The result is a seamless fusion that maintains realism while delivering spectacle. When characters interact with dinosaurs, whether through touch, proximity, or direct confrontation, the physicality is convincing, amplifying both suspense and emotional resonance. Even minor characters contribute meaningfully to the narrative fabric. Their reactions to danger, ethical dilemmas, and survival strategies provide additional viewpoints, reinforcing the film's sense of realism. The children's arc, in particular, emphasizes vulnerability, courage, and adaptability, reminding the audience of the stakes beyond adult decision-making. This layered characterization ensures that the chaos feels populated with authentic human responses rather than archetypal placeholders. The climactic sequences tie together narrative, technical, and emotional threads seamlessly. The Indominus Rex's final confrontation, environmental hazards, and character-driven resolutions converge in a way that feels both inevitable and surprising. The audience experiences relief, exhilaration, and contemplation simultaneously, reflecting the filmmaker's skill in balancing spectacle with narrative coherence. It's a payoff that respects the audience's investment and validates the story's internal logic. Even after the climax, subtle details reward attentive viewers. Lingering camera shots of damaged infrastructure, quiet reactions of secondary characters, and unresolved environmental consequences hint at a larger world beyond the immediate story. These elements suggest continuity and depth, reinforcing that Jurassic World is not merely a self-contained thrill ride, but a living, breathing ecosystem with ongoing implications for its inhabitants. In essence, the film achieves a rare balance. It's thrilling, emotionally resonant, intellectually engaging, and technically accomplished. Each component, writing, performance, direction, effects, pacing, and sound, works in harmony to produce an immersive, high-stakes experience that is as much about human ingenuity, decision-making, and morality as it is about dinosaurs and action. Jurassic World demonstrates that blockbuster cinema can be both exhilarating and thoughtful, satisfying both visceral and reflective appetites in a way that few films manage. The more I reflect on how the climax unfolds, the more I appreciate the way the filmmakers orchestrate tension across multiple fronts simultaneously. It's not just about a single chase or confrontation. It's about converging threats, environmental hazards, and character decisions all colliding in a coherent, high-stakes crescendo. Take, for example, the final sequences with the Indominus Rex. You have Owen and the raptors navigating a collapsing environment, Claire trying to protect the children, and the park's automated systems failing under pressure. Each element has been meticulously set up earlier in the narrative, so the chaos isn't arbitrary. It's the logical outcome of established story mechanics, and that gives the action weight. When a barrier fails or a dinosaur appears unexpectedly, it feels earned because the audience understands the parameters, yet the timing keeps you on the edge of your seat. The film also excels in visual storytelling. The cinematography is carefully calibrated to convey scale, emotion, and tension. Wide shots showcase the enormity of the park and the dinosaurs, creating a sense of wonder and awe, while tighter shots place the audience directly in the middle of danger. There's a tactile sense of space, which is crucial in a film where relative positions and movement dictate survival. The lighting, too, is intelligently used. Shadows, emergency strobes, and natural light all interact with the dinosaurs to heighten suspense, signal danger, and subtly underscore the mood of each scene. These visual cues, often subliminal, guide audience attention without feeling manipulative. Sound design complements the visual craft in a similarly sophisticated way. The roar of the Indominus Rex isn't just loud, it carries weight, texture, and presence, making you feel the creature's power before it's even fully revealed on screen. Environmental sounds, the rustling of leaves, distant dinosaur calls, the hum of electrical systems, create a layered audio landscape that reinforces immersion. Michael Giacchino's score further amplifies tension, shifting seamlessly between quiet, contemplative passages and bombastic crescendos to mirror the action on screen. The music never feels intrusive, it punctuates rather than overwhelms, reinforcing the stakes and pacing. Character dynamics remain central, even amid spectacle. Owen's relationship with the raptors is not only thrilling to watch, but thematically rich. It highlights a nuanced understanding of behavior, trust, and the blurred line between human and animal intelligence. Claire's evolution throughout the story adds another layer, as she transitions from corporate detachment to actively engaging with the moral and physical challenges of the park. Even the supporting characters, though less central, have distinct arcs and reactions that ground the chaos in relatable human experience. By the time the climax arrives, the audience is deeply invested not just in survival, but in who these people are and what their choices mean. There's also a remarkable balance between spectacle and strategy. The film doesn't rely on mindless action. Each sequence, no matter how intense, includes problem-solving, improvisation, and calculated risk. Owen reading the raptors' behavior to manipulate them, Claire navigating dangerous terrain to protect the children, or the park staff attempting last-minute interventions. All of these moments contribute to a layered tension that's as intellectual as it is visceral. The audience is encouraged to anticipate, analyze, and emotionally engage, rather than passively consume explosions and roars. Thematically, the narrative continues to probe questions about human ambition, ethics, and the unforeseen consequences of technological intervention. The Indominus Rex is a physical embodiment of hubris, engineered for spectacle, intelligence, and aggression beyond natural limits. Its rampage is not only thrilling, but also a commentary on the dangers of prioritizing profit and novelty over safety and ethical responsibility. The film subtly asks, what is the cost of playing God? And unlike more didactic movies, Jurassic World trusts the audience to absorb these ideas organically, integrating them into the story without heavy-handed exposition. Even the pacing demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of tension modulation. The film alternates between high-intensity sequences and quieter, reflective moments, allowing the audience to process developments, anticipate the next threat, and recalibrate emotionally. This rhythm prevents exhaustion and ensures that climactic moments hit with maximum impact. There's also a spatial intelligence at work. Sequences are choreographed so that characters, dinosaurs, and environment interact in ways that feel believable, making stakes both immediate and tangible. The result is a narrative rhythm that feels alive, dynamic, and almost instinctive, even across the film's extended runtime. The visual effects remain a standout achievement in how they interact with practical elements. The seamless integration of animatronics with CGI gives creatures a tangible presence, ensuring that their actions feel weighty and real. This is especially important in sequences where characters interact directly with dinosaurs. The tactile feedback of animatronics enhances believability, while CGI allows for the scope and fluidity of movement necessary for high-stakes sequences. The combination ensures that every roar, chase, and confrontation is grounded in a physical reality the audience can instinctively respond to, heightening suspense and emotional engagement. Beyond technical mastery, the movie continues to explore human relationships under extreme conditions. Fear, courage, leadership, and morality are constantly tested, creating a psychological depth that complements the spectacle. Characters are forced into decisions that reveal both strengths and vulnerabilities, and these personal stakes are amplified by the surrounding chaos. The interplay between internal conflict and external danger is a constant, subtle undercurrent that enriches the viewing experience, ensuring that the audience's emotional investment extends beyond mere adrenaline. Finally, the resolution is carefully constructed to balance closure and lingering tension. While immediate threats are addressed, the narrative leaves enough ambiguity to preserve the sense of an ongoing world, one where human ambition and natural unpredictability continue to coexist, often uneasily. This ensures that the story resonates beyond the final scene, encouraging reflection on ethical, emotional, and thematic levels. It's a conclusion that honors both spectacle and substance, delivering a payoff that is emotionally satisfying, intellectually engaging, and viscerally thrilling. The film, in its entirety, exemplifies how blockbuster storytelling can be sophisticated, layered, and immersive, without compromising on entertainment value. It's a testament to careful craftsmanship across writing, performance, technical execution, and thematic consideration. A holistic approach that makes Jurassic World more than a summer thrill, but a cinematic experience designed to resonate long after the credits roll. And as the tension and spectacle reach their apex, the emotional resonance of the film becomes increasingly apparent. It's not just about the chase sequences or the dinosaur attacks, it's about the stakes on a human level. When Claire and Owen confront danger, you feel the weight of responsibility that they carry, not as archetypes, but as people who have invested time, knowledge, and emotion into their surroundings. Their connection to both the park and the creatures within it lends gravity to the proceedings. The audience isn't just observing a disaster, they're embedded in it, feeling each misstep and triumph as though it has real consequence. The film also excels at weaving in layers of suspense that function on multiple levels simultaneously. You have the immediate danger, the creature in the room, the chase across the park, but overlaying that is the institutional tension, the corporate decisions, the cutthroat ambition of park management, the ethical dilemmas about genetic engineering. These dual layers create a richer, more complex tension than a standard monster movie formula. The audience is invested not only in survival, but in the moral calculus behind the unfolding chaos. And it's this sophistication that allows the film to resonate beyond the simple thrills, giving viewers a narrative that is intellectually engaging as well as viscerally exciting. Another element worth noting is the film's handling of suspense versus revelation. Timing is everything, and the movie demonstrates a keen sense of rhythm in how information is distributed. Early on, subtle hints foreshadow the Indominus Rex's capabilities. Strange behavior, unexpected intelligence. But these are never telegraphed overtly. By withholding just enough, the filmmakers create an anticipatory tension that compounds as events unfold. When the creature finally asserts itself, it feels inevitable, yet shocking, a testament to careful pacing and storytelling discipline. This is especially effective because it allows the audience to participate in a kind of puzzle solving, anticipating threats, understanding limitations, and feeling satisfaction when deductions are confirmed or overturned. On a technical level, the integration of practical effects with CGI remains a standout achievement. The tactile quality of animatronic dinosaurs in combination with digital enhancements allows for interactions that feel authentic and physically grounded. When characters manipulate the environment, climbing, opening doors, maneuvering vehicles, the effects are seamless, maintaining suspension of disbelief. This synergy between old-school craftsmanship and modern technology ensures that the film's spectacle never feels purely synthetic. Instead, it retains a physicality and immediacy that makes the threat of the creatures tangible. The audience can sense weight, momentum, and scale, which amplifies tension in a way that purely digital effects often struggle to achieve. The filmmakers also make deliberate choices in perspective that heighten immersion. Certain sequences put the audience directly in the line of sight of the dinosaurs, creating a first-person immediacy, while others pull back to provide a broader, almost cinematic overview that emphasizes scale and consequence. This oscillation between intimate and panoramic viewpoints sustains engagement and ensures that the action feels both personal and epic. It's a sophisticated technique that shows careful attention to spatial storytelling, ensuring that viewers are never just passive observers. They are participants in the unfolding drama. Character development is subtly interwoven into these sequences as well. Owen's bond with the raptors, Claire's evolution from corporate detachment to hands-on problem solving, and even the children's arc from wonder to fear to resilience, all receive sufficient attention to feel credible. These arcs don't slow down the pace. Rather, they enhance it by providing emotional stakes that complement the physical danger. Every encounter, decision, and risk taken by the characters carries more weight because we understand what it means for them personally. It's not just survival, it's a test of ingenuity, morality, and empathy. What's especially effective is the way the film balances spectacle with reflection. High-octane sequences are interspersed with quieter, contemplative moments that allow characters and the audience to process what's happening. These pauses are crucial. They prevent sensory overload and create contrast, making the subsequent peaks even more impactful. In these moments, the audience can absorb details of the environment, consider the ethical questions being posed, and recalibrate emotionally before the next escalation. It's a pacing technique that feels almost instinctive, yet it's the result of meticulous narrative planning. The narrative also benefits from careful attention to consequence. Actions are rarely without impact, whether it's a character's decision to enter a dangerous enclosure, the failure of park systems, or the unintended consequences of genetic manipulation. These causal relationships make the world feel coherent and alive. The danger is credible because it's rooted in the established rules of the film's universe. This level of internal logic is essential in maintaining suspense. Without it, threats would feel arbitrary, and stakes would be diminished. By adhering to consistent rules, the filmmakers ensure that tension is both earned and sustainable. Finally, the climax demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of escalation. Rather than relying solely on spectacle, it layers emotional, ethical, and narrative stakes, creating a multi-dimensional payoff. The final sequences are not just about the resolution of immediate threats. They're about the culmination of character arcs, thematic threads, and the consequences of prior decisions. The audience experiences a catharsis that is as much emotional and intellectual as it is sensory, leaving a lasting impression that extends beyond the adrenaline of the action. This combination of meticulous pacing, thematic depth, character investment, and technical execution ensures that the film delivers on multiple fronts, solidifying its place not just as a blockbuster spectacle, but as a thoughtfully crafted cinematic experience. And as you let that ending settle, there's something almost meditative about the way the movie lingers in your mind. You start replaying the smaller moments, the flicker of doubt in a character's eyes before a big decision, the subtle cues that a raptor might be sensing danger before anyone else does, the way Claire hesitates just long enough to make a choice that changes everything. Those tiny beats are what give the blockbuster heart. Without them, all the scale and CGI would feel hollow. But because they're there, they give the audience touch points to latch onto, to feel like the chaos is grounded in human experience. It also helps that the film doesn't shy away from complexity. There's an acknowledgement, even if subtle, that in a world like Jurassic World, there aren't neat moral answers. Characters make decisions that are pragmatic, sometimes morally gray, sometimes regretful. And that makes the narrative richer, because you're not just watching a battle between good and evil, you're watching people adapt, improvise, and sometimes fail. Those failures feel earned, and that authenticity resonates long after the credits roll. From a technical perspective, the production design deserves recognition for how fully realized the park feels. It's not just a collection of dinosaur exhibits. It's a functioning ecosystem with infrastructure, staff, and visitors, all moving within a believable spatial context. Every corridor, vehicle, and enclosure is designed with thoughtfulness that communicates both scale and realism. And that attention to detail enhances immersion, because when chaos erupts, you feel it not as a spectacle in a vacuum, but as an event unfolding in a world that could exist. The filmmakers were clearly meticulous in constructing these environments, so that the audience can intuitively understand space, danger, and opportunity without needing exposition at every turn. Sound and music further reinforce that. Michael Giacchino's score doesn't just accompany the visuals, it interacts with them. There's a pulse, a rhythm, and a tension in the music that mirrors the unpredictability of the dinosaurs. You can almost feel your heartbeat syncing with the crescendos and pauses. Sound effects, ranging from subtle rustling leaves to the bone-rattling roars, are layered so carefully that they heighten both fear and awe. And in combination with the editing, which oscillates between tight, frantic sequences and broader, sweeping perspectives, the technical elements coalesce to create a visceral experience that hits both emotionally and physically. The film also makes smart use of contrast. Quiet, contemplative moments, like Owen observing raptor behavior or Claire reflecting on her choices, are juxtaposed with high-octane chase sequences. That interplay not only maintains audience engagement, but also allows the film to breathe. It's a pacing strategy that mirrors real-life adrenaline. Intensity spikes, then subsides, then spikes again, keeping the experience dynamic rather than exhausting. And it ensures that the action sequences carry maximum impact, because the audience has a moment to process the stakes before the next escalation. There's a subtle meta-commentary embedded too. The very existence of Jurassic World as a commercialized theme park, combined with the narrative's exploration of human attempts to control nature, mirrors Hollywood's own fascination with spectacle. In a way, the film is self-referential. It acknowledges that we, as an audience, are drawn to large-scale, engineered thrills, and then it challenges us to consider the cost of those thrills. That layering gives the movie an intellectual dimension beyond the obvious adventure, inviting reflection even as you're gripping the edge of your seat. Even the visual effects deserve special mention for how seamlessly they integrate with practical effects. There's a tactile quality to the dinosaurs' movements, the way they interact with water, foliage, and vehicles, that convinces you these creatures occupy real space. The blending of CGI with animatronics and motion capture creates a tangible presence, which is crucial because the story relies so heavily on the believability of the creatures. When the Indominus Rex breaks through barriers or the velociraptors chase through tight corridors, it feels grounded. And that grounding amplifies suspense and emotional investment. And while the movie is clearly structured to deliver blockbuster excitement, there's also room for subtle humor and humanity. It's not laugh-out-loud comedy, but little moments like a character's understated reaction to a dinosaur's unexpected behavior or the kid's candid fear provide relief and deepen relatability. Those moments prevent the film from feeling relentless in its intensity, making the stakes feel more real because they're punctuated by recognizable human reactions. By the time the climactic sequences unfold, everything comes together. Character arcs, thematic undercurrents, technical mastery, pacing, and emotional investment. The peril feels immediate because the audience has been immersed, step by step, in a world where rules exist and consequences matter. The chaos isn't arbitrary. It's a natural extension of the story and character choices. And that careful orchestration ensures that the payoff is not just spectacle for spectacle's sake, but a culmination of tension, emotion, and narrative logic. Even the smallest details, like the way a character hesitates before entering an enclosure, or how a dinosaur's gaze shifts, matter in building anticipation. The audience has been trained to read these cues, and the payoff becomes more than just visual thrills. It's an emotional response that the filmmakers have meticulously engineered. That's what separates a truly immersive blockbuster from one that merely dazzles. Here, the investment feels earned, and the lingering impact resonates because the film respects the audience's intelligence and emotional capacity. The beauty of this structure is that it supports multiple layers of engagement. You can watch it as a straightforward adventure, a tense thriller, or even as a meditation on human ambition and ecological responsibility. Each viewing can emphasize different elements, and the richness of the world and characters ensures that repeated viewings continue to reveal new nuances. And that, in essence, is the hallmark of a thoughtfully crafted blockbuster. It entertains, thrills, and provokes reflection, all without ever sacrificing the immediacy of the story unfolding on screen. And as all of that tension weaves together, there's another layer that the film handles in a surprisingly thoughtful way: the moral undertones. On the surface, Jurassic World can feel like a pure thrill ride. Giant creatures, high stakes, fast pacing. But if you dig just a little deeper, there's a running commentary about human ambition and hubris that never quite lets you forget what's happening. The Indominus Rex isn't just a monster for spectacle's sake. It's a physical manifestation of unchecked corporate ambition and the dangers of trying to control nature without fully understanding it. The way it's designed, combining traits from multiple species, engineered to be bigger and smarter than anything that came before, it mirrors the mindset of the park's creators, who are constantly pushing for more extreme thrills to satisfy the consumer appetite. That tension between nature and human intervention is threaded through almost every scene, whether you notice it consciously or not. Owen's connection with the raptors adds another dimension to this. He's someone who has spent years understanding behavior, learning to read body language, to anticipate reactions, to respect boundaries without trying to dominate them. That makes him unique in the park. He represents an approach to these creatures that's almost anthropological. He studies them, learns from them, and adapts. Contrast that with the park management, who treat the dinosaurs as products or attractions, and the thematic undercurrent becomes clear. There's a difference between respect and control, between understanding and exploitation. And the film doesn't shy away from showing the consequences of that difference. When the Indominus breaks loose, it's a perfect narrative mirror for all the reckless decisions made in the name of profit and spectacle. The chaos isn't just thrilling, it's a logical outcome of the story's internal rules. What's remarkable about how the story unfolds is how it handles escalation without feeling artificial. The threats grow, yes, but they're grounded in the rules the film establishes early on. The dinosaurs are unpredictable, but not inexplicably so. The park's infrastructure can fail, but not in ways that defy logic. That careful calibration is why the tension feels earned. You're never asking, why didn't they just? Because the story has already set up believable limitations. Even the human characters are forced into making decisions under pressure, and those decisions carry weight precisely because mistakes have realistic consequences. It's an intricate balancing act between spectacle, character agency, and narrative logic, and it's what keeps the audience invested throughout the long, intense sequences. Visually, the film is stunning. The cinematography does more than just capture the action. It creates a tangible sense of space and scale. When the camera pans across the park, you get the sense that this is a living, breathing environment. The wide shots of dinosaurs roaming freely are contrasted with intimate close-ups that put you right in the character's shoes. Lighting plays a big role in shaping tension too. Shadowed enclosures, flickering emergency lights, the hazy glow of fires, all of it contributes to a sense of unpredictability and unease. And the sound design is meticulously crafted, layering the roars, footsteps, and environmental noise to heighten suspense without ever overwhelming the narrative. The combination of these elements isn't just spectacle, it's a tool for storytelling that enhances emotional engagement. The script itself deserves a nod for how it juggles multiple threads. There's the central narrative of survival and containment, of course, but also the human relationships, the familial bonds, the trust between Owen and the raptors, the ethical dilemmas faced by Claire, that add texture. The dialogue is generally functional, but punctuated with moments of wit, reflection, and humanity that give the characters depth. Even when the action ramps up, there's a sense that the script is aware of pacing and emotional beats, letting moments of levity or introspection punctuate the tension, rather than letting the intensity become monotonous. And speaking of pacing, the film does something interesting in how it sequences action and exposition. It doesn't front-load all the thrills. Instead, it builds them gradually. Early scenes establish character, environment, and stakes. Midway, tension begins to ratchet up as the Indominus shows its capabilities. And by the third act, the narrative is a near constant rhythm of escape, pursuit, and strategic maneuvering. But even in the most intense moments, there's a rhythm that allows the audience to process what's happening. It's not just chaos for chaos's sake. The filmmakers understand that suspense comes from both anticipation and consequence, the unknown and the potential cost of failure. One of the more interesting aspects is how the film manages audience empathy. You're never entirely aligned with any one character for long, and yet you understand the perspective of each. Owen's competence and calm under pressure make him a natural anchor. Claire's transformation from corporate executive to proactive participant keeps her relatable. The boys' reactions give us a lens of wonder, fear, and curiosity. By distributing the audience's focus across multiple points of view, the film sustains tension and engagement because we're constantly reassessing who's safe, who's in danger, and how the unfolding events will impact each character. That approach makes the stakes feel broad and personal at the same time. There's also a fascinating interplay between fear and fascination throughout the story. Dinosaurs are awe-inspiring in their design and scale, but they're also dangerous, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying. The filmmakers leverage that duality masterfully, creating moments that are visually thrilling but emotionally resonant. You feel the danger, but you also feel the wonder. It's a delicate balance that echoes the original Jurassic Park ethos, while adapting it to a contemporary blockbuster sensibility. The result is a film that can elicit both exhilaration and reflection in a single sequence, which is no small feat given the size and scope of the production. And finally, the ending carries a weight that isn't just about resolution, it's about implication. The immediate danger may be resolved, but the consequences linger. The characters are changed, the environment has been altered, and the film subtly invites the audience to consider what happens next, both for the story and for the broader philosophical questions it raises about humanity's relationship with the natural world. It's a conclusion that doesn't oversimplify, doesn't tie up every thread neatly, but instead leaves space for reflection and anticipation. That's what elevates the film beyond spectacle into something that resonates on multiple levels: emotional, thematic, and intellectual.